Và chúng con nhé. Con không nói nhiều tiếng Việt Nam nên xin lỗi, con muốn nói thêm về tiếng Mỹ nhé. Just want to say thank you so much to our father, all the nuns, all of our friends, family and relatives that have put the time out to come here to pray with us, to love with us, and to share our wonderful memories of my mother, Miss Tu Thi Pham. I'm going to try really hard to keep it together and make my mom proud. My mom, from the moment that I ever remember memories of her, and I think all my brothers and sisters can agree, both my parents have always put God first over anything and everything. We prayed every single night. There was never a night that we never prayed. It didn't matter if you had an exam or a project, 9 o'clock sharp or 10 o'clock sharp, everybody, she would call us by name. Thuy, Ling, Long, Quân, Ngọc, everybody come out, drop your books, and we're going to pray. And we prayed. We prayed a lot. We prayed the entire rosary every night. And we had to know our prayers. We had to know the stations. And we would all be so nervous, you know, and it's like, oh my God, it's my turn. It's like, oh my God, I know my prayer. And sometimes I'd ask my brother, what is it? Before it's my turn. But they really instilled in us the love of God and prayer. So much that, you know, they were so devout to Mother Mary. On the 13th of every month, we did a prayer session, a 3-hour prayer session. And sometimes my brothers were lucky and they got to go play tennis. And they didn't come back in time, wink, wink, for the prayer session. And we're like, dang it, how come I didn't get to go on that tennis? And, you know, as kids, we love God, but the devotion that we have to God probably is not at the level of our parents. And we always used to laugh because as my oldest brother and sister started learning how to drive, when we went on vacation, we would go in 2 separate cars. And my younger brothers would be arguing like, no, you go in mom and dad's car, no, you go in mom and dad's car. I'm like, dang it. And I would end up in mom and dad's car for, until the next rest area. And we would pray. She'd give me a rosary. We're gonna do the prayer. I'm like, gosh, I wanna take a nap. No, we're praying. And then after the prayer, they would put the little cassette in. And we would be listening to nuns praying. All their life, any minute they have, it would be prayer. And we would get to the rest area, it's like, no, it's your turn, Long. Now you gotta switch cars with me. So as kids, I think, we learn and we grow in our love for God. And I think, as we get older, we grow closer to God because we know that last chapter is coming near. I've learned so much from my mom and dad of their love for God. There has never been a day, unless they were sick, did they not go to church. Even when I was little, there was a summer when I went to church with them, and they would wake up at 6 o'clock and go to church every day before they would go to work. And all my life, that's one thing that I've always instilled in me was the love and the faith, no matter what. And just like Aileen said, they always prayed for us. If we had an exam, about to take an exam, I would call my mom. I knew she would pray. She would pray for me, and if Emma had something going on, I would call my mom, and she would pray. For Jacob, always, she would say, I'm going to say extra rosary for Emma tonight. And it was always about Mary and the devotion, and that's just one thing that they always instilled in me, and I have to say, I'm sorry, Mom. I try to pray every night, and sometimes we get lazy. Even right now I Zoom with Jacob and Twana. Sometimes I get a little lazy, and I used to pray with them every night on Zoom, and then sometimes it's kind of depressing not to be there, and I don't pray, and then I think about my mom, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Mom. Every day from now on, I will pray with my family every night. And that's something I will promise you that I will keep your tradition of prayer with us, and that's what I ask all of our family and our kids to. One thing that Grandma would absolutely ask of us is to keep that faith, that love of God above all things, above your schooling, above, anything in life. God always comes first, always comes first. And when you have children, our faith, our responsibility as parents is to guide our kids to get closer to God. Our responsibility as a husband or wife is to help each other become a better person so that we both can be together in heaven. And so I thank you, Mom and Dad, for our faith. And give you a little story about my mom and dad. They've been married, I think almost 60 years that they've been married. They immigrated to the U.S. My mom was 35 years old with 4 kids. She is a tiger mom. I take after my mom. She told me stories of when they were on the Navy boat that rescued the boat people. We were very lucky to be rescued by the Navy, U.S. Navy boat. And the Navy soldiers would be passing out porridge, but there wasn't enough porridge for everyone, and she would push her way up and make sure she was first in line. I definitely take after my mom. To get the porridge with a little bit of salt, she sacrificed so much. Growing up, she sewed extra. She was a seamstress, both my mom and dad. They needed more money, so they opened up a little tailoring shop in the garage at our house. They would work weekends as well. And, when my sister moved away, I would cook, and I was a terrible cook. I know I was. And I would ask her, she goes, I said, I don't know how to cook. She goes, you can do it, I'll show you. And I would cook, and it tasted terrible. I burnt the rice, it was salty. Never once did she ever complain, even though I knew it wasn't good. She sacrificed so much for all of us. That's the one thing that she loved us so much. She sacrificed so much for us. But as we grew older, I don't know how you as kids feel, but sometimes we feel disconnected from our parents. They don't understand us. When I was young, I was like, Mom, you don't understand me. I'm coming to America, and I like boys, and you're always restricting me from dating, and you're just so prude. I used to think my parents were old-fashioned and so prude, and that they didn't understand about life or friends. But as I grew older and I became an adult, I listened and I heard stories about my mom when she was young, and she was so infatuated with my dad. He was a police officer, and my aunt told me that my mom was so in love with my dad, she would find moments to try to sneak over to see him at the police station. And she told Grandpa that she was going to go to the market and sell some of the sewing things. But my aunt told me that she only said that because she snuck off and went to visit my dad instead. So when I hear those stories, it really, really helps me to understand, we were all young, we were all in love, we all went through teenage years, and I was able to connect with her so much more, hearing different stories about her, because I think in the Asian culture, we don't really communicate that well about our feelings. It's very formal. When they have discussions with adults, the kids would come out, would sneak in and listen, and she'd be like, oh, this is an adult conversation, kids stay out there. So in our culture, adults and kids don't really mingle as much, and we definitely don't talk about our feelings. So it's, or our love for each other. I know my parents loved me so much, but we didn't really say I love you. They showed their love through a lot of their actions, their sacrifices, and working 2 jobs. And but one of the silver lining when my mom got her stroke, and then she had dementia a few years ago, a completely different side of her came out. She turned into a kid again, and we were never really affectionate as parents and kids. But with her dementia, when I would come and say goodbye to her at the end of the day, I would say, Mom, I love you. And she'd say, I love you too. And never has she really kissed me, and she would grab my hand when I say goodbye, and she would kiss it 3 or 4 times. up and down my arm, and it's the most beautiful memory that I will have of her. She loved all of her kids. She always asked about all her kids. She asked, how's Squad doing? How's Chitoy doing? You know, she's got a long heart. His kids are getting so big. She always asked about all her kids. And the one person she asked about the most over the last few months was Dawn. Every time I come over, because Dawn and Jacob has been in New York, we would sit at dinner, and she would say, oh, we should wait for Dawn and Jacob to come. And I'm like, Mom, they're not here right now, they're in New York. And they're like, oh. And then a few days go by, where's Tuan? She loved Tuan so much. And I thank her because she and my dad, they were the best parents to Tuan. And he was such a wonderful son to them. There was never a time when he ever would say no to my parents. And my mom she always would say such beautiful things about Dawn, saying he's like the kindest, gentlest soul, and it is the truth. And I look at the love of my parents, and I am just so humbled, like the father said, to be grateful for the relationship that my parents had, you know, as a inspiration to us as husband and wife and family, how caring my father was to my mom, and how loving they are together. My clinic is near their house, and I have several patients that live in the neighborhood, and they used to come and see me. Oh, I just saw your parents walking up and down the street, and they're so precious, they're holding hands. And that, you know, sometimes I didn't even know they did that. And then lately, when my mom had a stroke, he would walk alone. And some of my patients would say, they were hesitant to ask me, like, I just was wondering, is your mom okay? Because is she still with us? I don't see her anymore with your dad. I say she is, but she had a stroke, so he walks alone now. And I pray that we, as a family, as kids, to be there for our dad, because it's a very difficult time for him. You know, they've never been separated. They share one phone, she doesn't drive, they're always together. So it's going to be a very difficult time for my dad, but he prays every single day, and I know that he knows that she is in a restful place up in heaven. And thank you for listening to me. I just wanted to share my story of what a beautiful soul my mom is, and how much she has shown us what love is about. And just a little funny story. My brothers took my dad on a cruise last year. And, you know, it was, when you're on a cruise or vacation, you have such a high. You feel so good. And when they came home, my dad, reality check, right? He's home. His wife's bedbound, and she's dying. He went through depression for probably a few weeks, if not a month or two, of severe depression. He didn't eat, he was losing weight, he couldn't sleep. And we were sitting at the dinner table, and my brother brought out some sandwiches. And my dad, I was like, Dad, eat. And my dad's like, oh, I just don't feel like eating, I'm just so tired. And my mom was like, what are you complaining about? She said, look at me, I had a stroke, I can't even move one side of my body, and I'm still here, because you know what? You just have to accept what God gives you, And then she says, you just accept it, because just eat. And then afterwards she said, don't complain about the food, because if you do, they're not going to bring us anymore. She had such a sense of humor. And I love you, Mom. And thank you so much, everybody, for for your love and your prayers.
So I will see you tomorrow at the church, and we will celebrate her life in resurrection. Thank you. So then I have to go home to say mass. I have a mass at 7. Okay, I will pray for you and pray for her. Okay.
Kính thưa Chú Đại, đại gia đình Tăng Gia và quý vị thân hữu, sự ra đi của Thím Lai đã để lại một nỗi buồn không thể diễn đạt nên lời cho Chú Lai, đại gia đình Tăng Gia và cộng đoàn thân hữu. Thím Lai là người bạn tuyệt vời của Chú Lai trong suốt cuộc đời, từ khi hai người trở nên một qua bí tích hôn phối. Thím Lai và Chú Lai luôn ở bên nhau và làm việc chung với nhau, đi đâu cũng có nhau, cùng chia ngọt sẻ buồn, và